Welcome to the class on the course ARM Microcontroller and Embedded System, Lecture 2 of Module 1. In the last lecture, we have seen the different ARM processors, out of which we would be now studying the Cortex M3 family of ARM processors in detail. So first we'll see the architecture of the Cortex M3 family of ARM processors and then learn the register set in detail. ARM Cortex M3 processors are 32-bit processors, which means they can handle 32 bits of data at a time, which means it has 32-bit data path, 32-bit register bank, and 32-bit memory interfaces. It is based on load store architecture, that is, all data processing operations takes place through registers only. There are only two instructions meant for memory access: load and store, LDR and SDR. No data processing involves memory directly. This helps in faster execution of the instructions. Coming to the register set, it has a register bank of 16 registers. Each register is 32-bit in size. So there are 16 32-bit registers R0 to R15, out of which R0 to R12 are general purpose registers. R13 is used as stack pointer. So it can be used as main stack pointer or process stack pointer. R14 is link register and R15 is your program counter. So apart from these registers, we have 5 special registers, out of which 3 are used for interrupts only. So these are the different registers that are available for programming or can be used for programming. Next, the ALU, the arithmetic logical unit, must be capable of performing 32-bit operations because it is a 32-bit processor. Now let us see the features of the memory. So it has a memory of 4 GB, which is predefined. So predefined means it is clearly specified what type of data has to use which part of the memory. So it has a predefined memory map of 4 GB. It is based on Harvard architecture, which means it has a separate code memory and data memory, that is separate instruction bus and data bus, which increases the performance of the processor. However, the instruction and the data buses should share the same 4 GB memory space. They share the same 4 GB memory space, and Cortex M3 processors can also have an optional memory protection unit, MPU, can have an optional memory protection unit wherein we divide the memory into blocks and protect it from unauthorized users. That's about the memory. Next, coming to the bus architecture, the medium through which the data and the code has to travel through. When this bus architecture can be broadly divided into 2 levels. The physical level is nothing but the first level wherein we define the electrical characteristics of the bus, the medium through which the data or the code has to travel through. And the second level is we define the rules or the protocols to be followed. So in the second level, we define the rules to be followed for proper communication to happen. Since the ARM company is involved only in the design process, they concentrate on the second level, that is, they give the standard for the communication to happen, and that standard is called as the AMBA standard. AMBA, AMBA stands for Advanced Microcontroller Based Architecture. All ARM processors use AMBA standard for their bus architecture, right? That's about the buses. Coming to the debug support. So our Cortex M3 processors include a number of debugging features, like you can have the JTAG debugger, you can have single stepping, you can have breakpoints, watch points inserted. So that amount of debug support provided is good in case of Cortex M3 processors. And a very important feature is how the ARM Cortex M3 processors handle the interrupts. So you have a separate block called as the nested vectored interrupt controller block, the NVIC blocks, which is exclusively meant for handling the interrupts. So the functions of this particular block goes like this. It helps in handling nested interrupts, which means whenever an interrupt is being serviced, the ISR of that particular interrupt is being executed. If an high priority interrupt comes in, then the interrupt which is being serviced can be stopped. That is, interrupt can be interrupted. Having an interrupt within an interrupt is nested interrupt, and this kind of support is provided, and that is handled by the NVIC block. Next, it takes care of the interrupts. It has vectored interrupt support, which means the ISR, the place where the subroutine is written for handling each interrupt, is stored in the vector table. So you can easily access the vector table and get the address of the ISRs and then execute the ISRs based on the interrupt that has been generated. It also has dynamic priority change support, which means during runtime, you can change the priority of the interrupts to. The interrupt latency should be kept minimal. So there should be reduction in the interrupt latency. Interrupt latency is nothing but the time between the interrupt being generated and the interrupt being serviced. So if this time is minimum, it means the interrupts are serviced as and when they come. So there would be reduction in the interrupt latency too. And you can even mask the interrupts by using the three special registers meant for interrupts. So interrupt masking, that is, disable the interrupts using the interrupt mask registers. So these are the functions which would be handled by the NVIC block exclusively for handling the interrupts. So the block diagram or the simplified view of the Cortex M3 processor is this. So you have the processor core system, which has the register bank of those 16 registers, the ALU, and then you have a instruction fetch unit, which would fetch the instructions and decode it and given to the ALU. You have this optional memory protection unit and the bus architecture based on the AMBA standards, and the NVIC block, which is meant to handle the interrupts. And you have a few. So Cortex M3 processors have a register bank of 16 registers, R0 to R15, R0 to R15. Out of this, R0 to R12 are general purpose registers. R0 to R12 are general purpose registers. In this set again, we have R0 to R7 has low registers and R8 to R12 as high registers. So low registers are registers which can be accessed by all 16-bit and 32-bit instructions, but high level registers are accessed by all 32-bit registers, but very few 16-bit instructions. Okay, so low level registers are accessed by 32-bit and 16-bit instructions. High level registers are accessed by all 32-bit and few 16-bit instructions. Yeah, next, R13 is your stack pointer. So you have two stack pointers, main stack pointer and process stack pointer. By default, main stack pointer would be used. This process stack pointer is used when we go for the embedded OS approach and is basically used for running base level application codes. And main stack pointer is used when we are executing the exception handlers. Next, R14 is the link registers whose functionality would be studied in the next slide. And R15 is your program counter, which is used for holding the address of the next instruction that is going to get executed. Next, a link register. To understand the functionality of the link register, so let me assume that you have a program being executed. In that program, you have a subroutine to be executed. That is, you have to compute the factorial of a number, for which you would have written a subroutine called fact. So whenever I have a subroutine to be invoked in the main program, I'll be basically using the call instruction. So instead of BL, let me say I had call fact. So what would happen once the call instruction is encountered? This new subroutine address, the location in the memory where this factorial program is stored, this address has to go to the program counter, and the point it was interrupted, I mean, the program has to continue its execution from this point because all these instructions are already executed. So this is what is called as a return address, the next instruction. This return address would be saved onto the stack, right? So first we'll save the return address onto the stack. Next, the program counter would get the address of this subroutine where the program counter has to jump to now to execute the subroutine, right? So you'll have the memory used for storing the return address. So instead of memory being used, we'll be using the link register here for storing the return address, right? So your instead of call, we'll be using here BL. BL stands for branch and link. So branch, that means it is going to change the flow of the program execution, and the link register would get the return address. PC would get the address of the subroutine which has to get executed, right? So it will branch to that location, execute the instructions until it encounters return, right? Once the return instruction is executed, we retrieve the return address back from the stack. That is what we usually do. Since here we are not going to access memory at all, we are going to retrieve the address now from the link register. From link register, the return address would be taken back into the PC, for which we'll be using the instruction BX, branch and exchange. Exchange the content of your LR with PC. So once this instruction is executed, the control would get transferred back to this point and you would continue with the main program. So the link register is used in branching, wherein you need to save the return address. So instead of accessing memory, we are using register to save the time taken for the program execution, or to increase the speed of your processor. Next, coming to the special registers, you have 5 special registers, as I already told you. The first one is the program status register. So here we have written it as XPSR because in this PSR we have 3 categories. We have 3 types of PSRs. So we call it as the we have written here it as XPSR, program status register, and the next 3 are meant for interrupts, which we call it as the interrupt mask register, and lastly you have the control register. Coming to the program status register, it is subdivided into 3 different registers: APSR, that is application program status register; EPSR, execution program status register; and IPSR, interrupt program status register. So special register, there are 5 special registers, out of which we have taken the program status register, and the program status register is in turn made up of 3 special program status registers, that is APSR, EPSR, and IPSR. If you look into the bit pattern of each one of them, the APSR is made up of the conditional code flags. So the MSB 5 bits are meant for the storage of the conditional code flags. In IPSR, the last 9 bits are used for storing the exception number, and in EPSR you have this ICT bit and the T bit, ICT bar IT and T bit. So this are the bit patterns of the 3 PSRs. So all the 3 PSRs can be put together and written in this format. Okay, it can be written in this format. Next, we'll see what each bit is and what it means, right? So the N, Z, C, V, Q, all these 5 conditional code flags were in the APSR. So N stands for negative. So this bit would get set if you have a negative result. Z is my 0 flag. C is carry or borrow used for addition and subtraction, and V for overflow if it exceeds the 32-bit range. And Q is my sticky saturation flag. So sticky saturation flag is set whenever the instruction has resulted in a value which has exceeded its saturation levels. So few instructions will set this flag to indicate the overflow or the saturation. So it is called sticky because the subsequent instructions cannot clear this bit. Once it is set, it sticks to that particular value. So if I want to clear that flag, I have to write a 0 specifically into it using a instruction, right? So sticky saturation flag is a new flag which we are learning now. because this we wouldn't have studied in 8086 microprocessor. So this flag would get set as a result of few instructions being executed, wherein you have the values exceeding the saturation value, saturation level, right? So whenever it exceeds, this flag would get set and it continues to be 1 until it is cleared specifically by the user by writing a suitable instruction for it. So these are the 5 flags in the APSR. Next, we have the IPSR, in which we have this ICT. ICT stands for Interrupt Continuable Instruction Bit. IT is if then instruction. So there you have a if then instruction. The status bit is indicated here. So this APSR, out of this APSR, IPSR, and EPSR, interrupt priority program status register, execution program status registers are read-only registers. IPSR and EPSR are read-only registers. Okay, so they can only read the value. T stands for thumb state, and it is always 1. If you try to clear this, then a fault exception would be raised. Exception numbers indicates which exception is being processed. There are 256 exceptions which the Cortex M3 processor can handle. So which exception is being processed is indicated by the service number in the IPSR. Next, coming to interrupt mask registers, we have 3 interrupt mask registers. Primary mask register, it is basically a 1-bit register. So if it is set, it means that it is allowing NMI and add fault and disables other exceptions and interrupts. So by default, it is 0, which means no masking is allowed. There is no masking done. Next is the fault mask register, is again a 1-bit register. If it is 1, it means that it is allowing only NMI, non-maskable interrupt, and it disables all other interrupts. So by default, its value is 0, which means there is no masking. So this fault mask is basically used by an OS. Say you have some task which has been crashed by the OS. So if OS will enable this bit. So to avoid further fault exceptions being raised until the core clears up this problem, we can use this register for clearing, for setting it, making sure that the fault exception is not raised again. Next, you have the base PRI register, which can go up to 8-bit register, which disables all interrupts or lower or equal priority interrupts and allows only the high priority interrupts when set. It is by default again 0, which means there is no masking done or no priority being assigned. Thank you.